Limerence is an addiction-level romantic obsession with someone you can't have. And people who have this usually go through episodes of checking out of reality, hanging out in a fantasy of having their intense love for a particular person reciprocated. And then, of course, the idea of the person is not really the person. And love is not the word for the attachment. But sadly, it's common in people who were emotionally neglected as kids to just export all their romantic energy to the idea of a person. It's not a real person and not a relationship that can actually happen. And it can rob you of any chance of truly loving someone and being loved in your life. Because limerence takes up that space where anyone real could really be with you. This is romanticized in movies and TV and novels and music, and it seems like 90% of all music is about loving someone you can't have, right? So it's out there. But how do you overcome this destructive, trauma-driven relationship pattern? Who talks about how to heal it? Well, I do. Now, as you know, I'm not a doctor or therapist. I'm someone who recovered from my own childhood PTSD symptoms, including this one, and I teach people step by step how I did that. It's a very practical approach you can manage whether or not you have access to professional help or not. And that's what this channel is all about. So this is really cool. Yesterday, I got a letter from a man that I called Daniel. When I got a first letter from him several months ago, he actually sent the letter about 9 months ago, and I finally read and responded to the letter here last month. Now, if you're new here, I respond to letters about life problems, and once in a while I end up with a letter from way down the pile, and that was Daniel. And a lot of time had passed. You might remember him. He had been emotionally neglected as a kid by two struggling parents, and the mom became an alcoholic. The dad had been hiding that his business had failed. The parents were both morbidly obese and avoiding life really hard, and they badly neglected Daniel. And when he was getting ruthlessly bullied at school, they didn't help him. Until he says, it got so bad he was crying every night. Now, you may remember his story. I'll link the video down below at the end of the video in the description section if you want to watch it. But the reason Daniel initially wrote to me is because his early life had kept him in a near constant state of limerence. Today, things are going better for him. He has friends, he's healthy, he has a career he loves, but he told me in that first letter that every time he used to develop feelings for a woman, even when she liked him back, it's as if a giant wall came up to block him emotionally and psychologically. He had so much pain about how stuck he had gotten on women in the past. And so in present time, he couldn't make a move on anybody. He couldn't even express himself. And he would get overwhelmed and terrified, so he couldn't date. So with that letter, I shared my advice with him, and yesterday I sent him a thank you note for sharing his letter and apologized it took me so long to get back to him. And I said that I hoped the video would still be helpful. Well, you know what? He wrote back and he shared the incredible progress he's made in these last 9 months. And what he wrote to me is so clear and so good. I knew that you'd want to hear this. So this is Daniel's letter to me from the other day. He says, "Hi!" Exclamation point. He said, "I just watched the video and I'm very grateful for the advice and all the positive comments from the community. Since that letter in April, I've grown significantly, and last year was extraordinary for me. Since that letter, I've had 4 limerent episodes." It is like that, episodes, isn't it? "And each time they've been significantly less severe and less dysregulating. These are some of the key factors that I attribute for the change. 1, self-talk and beliefs. The kinder I am to myself during the limerent episode, and after it ends, the more manageable and calm it is. It can be hard at first, but you get used to self-kindness. Understanding, at least consciously, that rejection is normal and that there's nothing wrong with me. Understanding that fits of pain and self-doubt after rejection are also normal. They're expected, temporary, and they don't reflect my true beliefs. I'm not my day-to-day thoughts." He says, I am not my day-to-day thoughts. "With positive and growth-oriented self-talk, I've come out of each limerent episode not more damaged, but more healed. Navigating through exposure is part of the process." Number 2, action. focusing on taking action and not the results. This can also be very hard and terrifying, Daniel says, but it is the key. The more you let the limerence develop, the more painful rejection becomes. It's better to find out fast if there is any interest back. And also, I don't have to do everything perfect. That's not what a partner wants anyway. No perfect approaches or perfect texts, just me. I love that, no perfect texts. If I focus on just taking each small step and being proud that I did, instead of a result, I take it way better and I can allow myself to feel great. I did it. I was courageous. It can turn a negative experience into a positive experience. Number 3, patience and self-acceptance in taking action. All of this is hard. Many times I will be scared. It sounds counterintuitive, but being open to taking it slow and being okay with failing to act or being okay with episodes of dysregulation takes off some of the pressure. I don't need the shame. I congratulate myself when I take action, but I do not punish myself when I don't. It's okay if you don't take action 10 times in a row if you take action the 11th time. This is not a race. It's okay if it takes years. With that mindset, I've been able to take more action. Number 4, raising self-esteem and healthy exposure to rejection reduces limerence. I feel like limerence is a coping measure to what our subconscious brain identifies as inevitable rejection, a mental painkiller drug. We're never going to get this person because we're not good enough for them. So let's at least have the fantasy that feels real. And the thing is that inevitable rejection is all in our head, and our idea of being good enough to the other person is only a reflection of how we see ourselves. The more grounded in ourselves we get, the more our subconscious lowers the pedestal we put others on, and we start to see them as real people. Preferences are normal. Taking many attempts before you find someone compatible and appropriate for you is absolutely normal. With each rejection, you understand more and more that everything is fine. You're not going to be judged, and you are not going to die. I will say, though, that social calibration is important and should be learned. I guess that means going in a measured fashion. All of this is easier said than done, but I hope it helps, says Daniel. If you think this is helpful and you wish to use it for future content, I fully consent to the use of this reply. All the best, Daniel. Isn't that gorgeous? So I have nothing to say except great job, Daniel. And I wanted to share this with everybody because it's a very practical, self-affirming way to deal with limerence, especially with what you described as not being able to make a move on somebody you were interested in because you would sort of leap into limerence and be so sure that it was hopeless, that it just all had to be in fantasy. I'm so proud of you, Daniel. Great work. And if anybody is watching this, I want to leave you with a really helpful tool for dealing with connection. I think limerence arises a lot out of a sense of disconnection from people. If you think that early trauma in your life has messed up your ability to connect with other people authentically, I've got a list of signs that that just might be happening, and that's right here. You can download it for free. And I'll see you very soon.